Hello, my name is Nicholas Johnson. This is a picture of some rumble sticks at Circuit of the Americas, and today we're going to be talking about the side hustle at the Space Warehouse. So pretty much my whole entire life, the only real job I've ever had was in the Army in the early 2000s. I went to college for like 8 years for a bunch of different things. I got into events in production in 2012 and pretty much stayed with that all along. I'm going to do a series of videos outlining the ways I make money when I'm at home. Starting with today's video, which is all about the process of screen printing. All day, every day, everywhere you go, you see t-shirts that look something like this. Like some statement or some photo or some picture, whatever, on the front of a shirt. But it may surprise you to learn that the process for making these really hasn't changed much at all. Screen printing goes back hundreds of years. The process of screen printing with art and things like that goes back forever. I mean, cave people screen printed. That's not true. I don't know how far back it goes. But I have a more modern screen printing operation in the garage of my rental house, which is another one of my side hustles. And I'm gonna go over the steps from start to finish right now of how that's done. Starting with an empty screen. So the process starts with a light-sensitive emulsion. You'll notice this video looks really tinted yellow. Yellow light doesn't affect this emulsion. It's pretty magical. And so the first half of this whole t-shirt making process, when you're building the screen to print your shirts with, starts in the dark, or it starts under yellow light. And I'm mixing up that emulsion. You mix this stuff. It smells just like Elmer's glue. It's the weirdest thing. But you mix this little powder into it and it becomes light sensitive. Take this stuff, you pour it into this little metal scoop thing, and then take that and you make a perfectly smooth coating of this emulsion on both sides of the screen. Once the screen is coated, it takes about 4 hours for it to dry, but I just usually do it the night before. So I'll coat these screens and I shove them in a little light-proof cabinet that I made, and then let them dry. So that stuff basically hardens, and then anywhere light strikes it, it will become permanently hard. Anywhere light doesn't, you can just wash it off with water. We need to make these clear films with the design printed on them. Large-ish 13x9 printer. We just fire out the design. This printer has this extra black pigment, so it's like CMYK, where the K is black, but then there's another black to make the black extra black, so that it blocks the light. I like to make one that has all the colors on it, as like a guide layer. I'll just tape that one down, and then I'll measure where it's going, and I'll tape that down the same place on each color. So this particular design had just a blue triangle to go with a white Tagalong word. As long as you put the guide layer on each one, and then you take the guide layer back off, they line themselves up. It's pretty magical. Then you take the screens over to this exposure unit. So you put a piece of foam in there and then a weight down on top of it to really just flatten the film down onto that glass surface, so that you get as sharp a lines as possible. Everything is pressed down really tightly up against the screen, and then it's got super bright lights that shine on it for a predetermined amount of time. Mine goes for 4 minutes. That'll vary based on how bright or how old the tubes are in your lights. Once that is done, you can't really tell anything's happened yet. You take off the films. I've built myself a little spray cabinet. Just shove it on in there, and then you give it a coat of water. It starts to work. While it was in the exposure unit, anywhere the light hit the screen, it's gonna harden. So the emulsion that we coated the screen with is gonna turn super hard anywhere light hits it. But where we printed out the design, light was blocked from it. And so that part where we printed out the design is just gonna spray off, just gonna wash off. And if you're gonna use a pressure washer, it goes a lot faster, but you gotta be real careful, because if you go too close, it'll just blow right through the screen and kind of erase the whole thing, or sometimes even blow a hole in the actual screen itself. Best to look on through there to make sure everything got done the way you want. And then it is pretty important to dry them off right away. Like, water eats away at that emulsion, and if they just sit there wet, it can soften up, and then when you put ink on it, it'll mess up the screen. Especially if you have a long run, you're gonna be printing a lot of shirts, it's gonna have a lot of wear on it. So I like to dry them off right away. And now, once you've made all your screens, all the yellow light period is gone, and you can bring in the light. I use a D100 Drier from Vastex, and then a clever little trick, since that driver is pretty small and we're using discharge ink, which has to pretty much boil off the water in the water-based ink in order for it to cure. It needs to be hot for a little bit longer. So I just put this little infrared heater on the back of it, and you wouldn't believe how much heat that thing puts out. And I set the height according to the speed of that conveyor belt to match the heat that comes off of the dryer itself. And it's like I have two dryers with an extra what was that? Like a $40 purchase. It's an amazing little screen printer hack if you're a small operation and you don't mind your dryer speed going as slow as mine does. So we're using discharge ink, which is this kind of magical ink, which I guess the dumbed down way to say it is the ink will bleach the area that you're going to color and then replace that with color. So instead of ink like on top of the shirt where you can feel it and it's kind of, you know, like if you had a big design, it'll kind of make you sweaty where the design is, this discharge ink just recolors the fabric rather than puts ink on top of the fabric, and it's super amazing. So you put in just base white, you mix in this powder that smells like formaldehyde, I think. It smells like science class in high school when you're like cutting open a frog. Weirdest thing. I don't know how I have that memory of the smell in my head. But then you mix in the color to your desired hue. In this case, it was a light blue, so we have white mixed with blue. I just have a regular little kitchen mixer that I use to stir it up. Check it out. I nailed it on the first try, which is unusual, so that we're moving right along. Now with two colors, alignment is a whole thing, and it's a little tough, but once you've done it a ton of times and you get used to it, it's not so bad at all. I used to use test shirts all the time, but now I just fire away. So I put this shirt on there, and then I went to the blue screen and I just aligned. You can see through it a little bit, and I was aligning the blue color in accordance with the white color that I had already done. I personally love just doing one color t-shirts. I just want to just print a single color design. I could make them all day long. Next, once you've lined everything up and the oven's hot and the ink is ready to go, it's time for production. So however fast you can get the shirts onto the platen, they call it, and then, you know, get the different colors of ink pushed down onto the shirts, that's how fast you can make a t-shirt. So with this simple two-color graphic shirt, I could make maybe one every 25 seconds or so, and they just go into the oven, and that's it. That is t-shirt printing. Even with like Disney or something that makes thousands and thousands of t-shirts, this is the process that's almost always followed. They'll have like a robot arm that actually does the push stroke rather than a person, and like everything kind of like mechanically moves around, automated, and it's just a person that loads the t-shirts on one after another really fast. But aside from the fact that a robot does it, the process is the same that it's been for hundreds of years to make t-shirts. Think about that the next time you put on one of your t-shirts that's a graphic tee. If your t-shirt's like a full colored, there is a newer process where it's called direct to garment, which literally just like a big printer that just prints it right on the t-shirt. That process is slow enough that it's generally not used for making large orders of lots of shirts. Profit margins vary, but maybe about a $5 bill per t-shirt. And so it's not a bad little side hustle. The hardest part about it is finding people who need them or want them. So that's it. That's screen printing. That's one of my side hustles. This particular company, Tagalong, gets pro athletes to train with people, and I guess they're tagging along on your workouts to show you how to train like a pro. I got this printing job from a guy you knew in college, in engineering school. His name's Peter. Hey, Peter. This has been the first installment of The Side Hustle, the ways I'm making money beside the ways that I make money. And especially now in the COVID-19 pandemic, since live events are my main gig, there's not live events happening. So I'm leaning harder on my side hustles. I think the next one of these I'll do on shipping and how I'm a race car driver who gets paid only by shipping things to the cities that I drive race cars in. Oh well.